Welcome. Thank you so much for joining me on this socially delightful podcast. I'm Jewel, human connection enthusiast and your host, and this show is all about delighting in yourself, delighting in socializing and others, and creating truly supporting, delightful friendships and relationships, even in our modern world with our modern stress. In this podcast, we have fun creating a new culture of living social delight. Now let's dive into how we're going to do that today.
Welcome back to the Socially Delightful Podcast. I am ecstatic, delighted to have you here. Today's episode is full of information that I really wish I knew of in the past. I think it would have really helped me feel more empowered and relax a little bit in my social anxiety with my friends, my relational anxiety, my friendship anxiety. So I'm really excited to share this information with you. I also just wanted to say that this past weekend, just spoke at a festival in my state, Michigan. It's called the Barefoot and Free Yoga Festival. It was so fun. And they had a bunch of different collections of workshops everywhere. And y'all, I gave this workshop called Make Your Friendships More Meaningful Without Adding to Your Plate. And this workshop really, it distills all of my work to help make it actionable and easy for people to apply to their lives. And I had every seat that was available taken. I had more people keep joining while the workshop was going on at the festival. It was so fun, so rewarding. And I had people come up to me after the workshop and they were, getting teary about having a friendship breakup because their friend of 30 years, things happened and that they didn't know if they would be able to have a bond like that again. And now they feel like they can. I had people come up to me and say that I had been feeling really unfulfilled in my friendships and now I feel like there's something I can do about it. But the one that really got me, and I've gotten emotional every time I've shared this with somebody, but I don't know, so I might get emotional today talking about it. But what really got me was I had somebody who was about my age, who was so sweet, so cool, somebody I would be friends with, come up to me at the end of the workshop and she was sobbing. And she told me that she hadn't made a friend, let alone a meaningful friendship, in 10 years. Here come the emotions. Here comes a little sting behind my eyes. And she said, I finally don't feel like I'm weird. And there's something I can do about it. She left the workshop knowing that there was a way for her to make meaningful friendships, knowing that there wasn't anything wrong with her. And that is what I do. Now, I would love to speak at your company. I would love to speak at your event and give this workshop. I can definitely condense it, but it was so good with an hour and a half. And I mean, so many people came up to me after the workshop just to talk to me more about it. They loved it. When it comes to work as well, because if you're like, oh, that doesn't really make sense for my company, when people feel more connected, especially at work, they're more likely to stay. They're more likely to try to figure out problems for the company, to problem solve for the company. They're a lot more literally emotionally invested in the company, which makes sense because one of the number one reasons, if not the number one reason, why people leave companies is because they have bad management. And so for people to feel more connected, have better social well-being, that's going to help your company. We also respond differently to stress. Literally, our bodies are less impacted by stress when we are feeling connected in our lives. We live longer, we're healthier. And so this does apply to your company as well. This is relevant to everybody. And there's certain things that I can bring, whether your event is around well-being and wellness, or connection, even confidence. Or if your company, you want it to be more about work and things like that, I can shift some of the material to fit more of those needs as well. And like I just said, it was so rewarding. It meant so much to me. And it was such a good reminder of why I do this. Not that I ever forget. Whenever I work with clients and they are talking to me about, you know, oh, I'm nervous for people to like look at me at a coffee shop and now I'm going to sing in front of my entire company, or for clients to tell me like this happened, I was rejected and I was so soft with myself and so understanding and I didn't make it mean anything about me. That's so rewarding. And sometimes, to be honest, I get a little caught up in the friendship aspect of it all because a lot of times when I'm like networking with people, they'll be like, oh, I don't have time for friends. I don't want any new friends. But it's because we have made friendship and connection and socializing even such a damn chore in our lives. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, like honestly, it's a quote unquote hard sell to keep going with the friendship piece. But this was just such a good reminder of why I am dedicating my life to not to just like confidence and feeling great in social situations, but also feeling more meaningfully connected. That is my jam. That is what I'm all about. That is what I committed and dedicated my life to. And this was such a good reminder of why friendship is a part of that. Because I also sometimes coach people on their relationships, like their romantic relationships, dating, and feeling more connected in that way. I often actually, probably more than that, I coach people on dealing with coworkers, of managing teams and things like that. But I always bring it back to friendship because I really am on this mission to unshore it for reasons like this workshop and the people coming up to me afterwards saying, oh my gosh, I finally feel like I can be more meaningfully connected in my life. Thank you. Today's episode, I'm going to be really diving deep and adding a lot of context to this article I found in the New York Times. It's called The Vexing Problem of the Middle Friend. It's by Lisa Miller. It was very well written. I enjoyed it. I'm going to be really real with y'all, though. I don't recommend y'all check it out. I'm going to add a lot more context to it today that's going to help you feel more empowered. But the angle that the article was written was just a little bit pessimistic, if I'm being real with you. At least it felt that way to me, and I don't think it would really serve y'all. Plus, I'm going to give you all of the information that we know, like all of the knowledge and research behind what we know to add context to this. So just want to say that, but it was an interesting read. And so today we're going to be talking about middle tier, if you will, friends, and why they cause the majority of drama that we have in our friendships, the majority of conflict issues. We're also going to be talking about how to handle lack of clarity around prioritization, like if a friend prioritizes you more than you do them, or vice versa. We're going to be discussing a Reddit story. I'm going to be reading a Reddit story that I found of someone describing how they feel, as they called it, low priority. And I'm going to be responding to that story and giving advice to that. And I'm going to be really giving y'all the information on how to move out of feeling like a low priority friend or even like a medium friend. So we have a lot to discuss today. I want to start by giving some perspective. A lot of this will relate to relational anxiety, and this episode will really help you be aware and hopefully like exhale and feel a bit more empowered, because awareness is authority. And when you are aware of these dynamics, when you are aware of all of this, when you are aware it's not you and that there's not something wrong with you, it's so helpful. If you struggle with relational anxiety, feeling anxious about people close to you, overthinking if people close to you are judging you, that is my jam. I love helping people with that. Like, to help people feel really good about themselves in any social situation, but also to help them feel more meaningfully close. I highly recommend the episode, Why You Are Confident Around Strangers But Overthink Things with People That You Know. Another thing I want you to view this episode through is just viewing this as information about common dynamics and things like that. I don't want you to view this episode as trying to find the perfect action step for getting out of this, because truthfully, the most important thing is that you feel connected to yourself, that you have a good self-esteem. And self-esteem and self-confidence are different. Self-esteem is, I know I'm going to be kind to myself. I'm going to treat myself well. I'm going to nurture myself. I'm going to accept myself as who I am. And that's going to empower me more, right? A lot of times we're afraid of self-compassion, self-acceptance, because we think it makes us more complacent. But research has shown, and trust me, after 4,000 hours of coaching clients, I can damn near call it a fact that we are much more motivated when we are accepting of ourselves, no matter if it's friendship, if we have weight loss goals, whatever it may be. So those skills are most important. Increasing your capacity to feel connected and knowing how to create deeper connection with people, more meaningful connection, those are the most important skills. And we're not diving into those today. Today, we're just talking about theories, we're talking about research, we're talking about dynamics, and there isn't like a perfect way to go about this. All right, we're going to start with talking about our like top tier friends. And if you notice an outfit change, I'm wearing my work clothes, but what happens whenever I go to write or review an episode, I always got to get comfy. Hair goes up, sweatshirt comes on, but now it's getting warm. So let's start talking about top tier friends. Now, you might have heard me talk about this in the past, especially when I had my two besties on the podcast in episode 2. We talked about the science of meaningful friendship, and we talked about how that is created through 3 things and how we can think of that as a triangle, with the base of the triangle being our acquaintances and the top of our triangle, the people at the pinnacle, being our confidants, being our, if you will, best friends, our partners. Now, at the very top of our triangle, we can really only fit arguably 3 to 5. 5 is really pushing it. I would even say 2 for some people. We can really not fit a great number of people at the top of our triangle on our confidant, super close, you know everything about my life, we talk all the time level. However, I do think there is some fluidity in this. There are people that maybe I don't talk to all of the time, but I feel really comfortable confiding in. We have a lot of history applying those 3 friendship necessities together. And again, if you want to learn about what those necessities to friendship are, the science of meaningful friendship, go check out episode 2. But so there are some times where top tier might be more than just those 3 to 5 people for you. And you might have other confidants and people you can confide in. Regardless, a way I want you to think about this is that these are people that you will want to spend time with under any circumstance. Like you can just sit around with, I like to call them sometimes like rest and digest friends, where you are just sitting on the couch, like chilling, refilling your cups up, relaxing together. And for a lot of people in the article, Lisa Miller mentioned this as well. For a lot of us, includes people that we befriended in college, because we have a lot of shared experiences, a lot of history together, applying the necessities for friendship. So a lot of times it happens with people in college. So we have the top of our triangle, the pinnacle, if you will, our confidants, our top tier. And so let's talk about the middle tier. That's what we're really going to be focusing on today. And this is what Lisa Miller has called a medium friend. And she describes that the medium friends are genuine friends. Like you share history, such as maybe college, you have the same circumstances like an employer or interests. Medium friends make you laugh, bring news, offers, insight, or expertise. But unlike your closest friends, the friends that you feel comfortable doing anything with, medium friends often test the limits of your time, love, and energy, because there are only so many catch-up dinners in a week, so many people that you can be incessantly texting. So medium friends are people that we are close with, but aren't our closest friends, right? And what is often the problem with medium friends is that there's a lot of vagueness around how we prioritize each other. And this is where a lot of that drama ensues. A lot of that drama comes in because we don't know, oh, am I a priority to them? Are they like, I don't know if I should prioritize them. I have all these other people. The lack of clarity around, oh, how do we prioritize each other is what causes a lot of drama. And when I say prioritize each other, I mean, for some people, they might be like, yeah, that's one of my closest friends. That is someone I really prioritize. And for another person, they might not feel that way and say, yeah, like you're a friend I care about, I love, I adore, but you are not a priority for me. And so we can already see, right, where a lot of the drama can ensue. So I like the way Lisa articulates this, and she says that it's the invisible lines you draw around them without ever being explicit to them and possibly to yourself. She goes on to describe that reciprocity. What? Why did that sound? Reciprocation. Reciprocias. You ever say a word so often you're like, that doesn't sound right anymore? Reciprocity. Whatever. Reciprocation. I can say that confidently. So Lisa goes on to say, reciprocation is the foundation of every friendship, mutual sharing and caring in a context of trust. And the tension embedded in medium friendship is that the absence of, oh, are you reciprocating just as much with me? Am I reciprocating just as much with you? And we all kind of crave this. We all crave the symmetry of, oh, you're investing in me, I'm investing in you. Lisa also goes on to say that the anxious silences around medium friendship are recognizable to anyone that has ever fibbed about the duration of a business trip and is like, oops, sorry, still on this business trip, I can't spend time together. Or who has heard, oh, I'll call you too many times. The stakes increase in crises or celebrations when lack of clarity and any lopsidedness start to reveal itself. Right? And we see this really often with bridal parties. And there's a lot of drama that comes up for women when it comes to bridesmaids of, oh, she didn't ask me to be a bridesmaid and I asked her. There's a lot of drama that comes up with this, especially for women, because we tend to have deeper relationships than men do. We have more emotionally intimate relationships. We confide more in each other. We disclose more with each other. And so when we aren't feeling prioritized by a friend, especially if we are prioritizing them, that can really upset us because of the depth of the relationship. And so really, because of how emotionally intimate women are with each other, we also care more about prioritization and tend to get really upset when we aren't mutually prioritized. So this happens a lot with like bridal parties and things like that. Now, to go on to describe this further, Lisa says that the silence around medium friendship is often intended to protect others' feelings. So you might not want to tell a friend, oh, you're not as much of a priority to me. I don't want to hurt your feelings. And she gives this other example, like let's say someone refers to you as a work friend, and then you privately huff, and you're like, oh, dang, because you thought you were closer than that. Or maybe you learn about a pregnancy on Instagram, and then you're miffed that you didn't hear it first. This imbalance confounds and wounds us, leaving us feeling powerless, angry, or self-critical, but we often have no response. So that's a direct quote from the article. And this makes a lot of sense, especially for women. We logically know it's okay for them to have other friends. We logically know it's healthy even for them to have other friends in other places to prioritize. We logically know that we aren't owed anything from our friendships. A lot of times when my female clients bring this up to me, they're like, this is so middle school, or I know I shouldn't care. And it's like, no, this thing from middle school, I guess, never really goes away because, of course, you care about being mutually prioritized. Of course, you want to feel valued in your relationships because that's what it does. Feeling reciprocation, having somebody invest back into you, knowing where you stand with somebody and knowing that you stand highly on the ladder of importance in their lives, of course you care about that. There's nothing juvenile about that. All right? So one, take an exhale. There's nothing wrong with you. Of course you care. Of course you do. Now, it really becomes a problem when we are really getting worked up and anxious around this, like in that episode, Why We're Confident Around Strangers and Overthink Situations with People That We Know. Like in that episode, because of relational anxiety, and there are things you can do for that. Check out the episode to see what. Now, one thing I have learned, especially through my master's program, is that we don't realize how much of our relationships, our friendships, our communities really impact our self-worth. And it's not just because, I shouldn't let other people impact how I feel about me. Okay? It's because so much of our self-worth is tied to how we relate to other people. Nearly in every stage of growing up, of life, every stage of our lifespan, we're figuring out, how do I relate to myself and my own individuality? And how do I relate to others? How do I belong? How do I connect with others? At damn near every phase in our lifespan, what we're going through, from kindergarten on the playground and discovering things about ourselves and relating to the other kids in our classroom, to high school and middle school when we're exploring more like intimate relationships, more sexual relationships. How do I identify with myself? How do I relate to myself? How do I relate to others? And so on. Okay? And think about it. If you ever try to think about your self-worth and how you view yourself, what does that sound like? I'm a great friend. I'm a great sister. I'm a wonderful daughter. I'm funny. I'm smart. I'm kind. I'm nice. Compared to who? Compared to what? How do you know that you're nice? How do you know that you're funny? How do you know that you're smart? What frame of reference do you have for that? The frame of reference that you have for that is other people. Am I right? Okay. So there's nothing wrong with this. On some level, we all do this. And that is why this episode is so important, to really help empower you in it. Okay, so I'm going to keep going. I'm going to hop off my soapbox. However, female friendship expert Danielle Jackson describes that probably about 50% of our friendships have mutual prioritization or are reciprocal in their prioritization. So what does this mean? If you picture your friendship triangle and you have people at the top, you have people in the middle, and you have people at the bottom, right? So those top tier friends, medium friends, and acquaintances, or just coworkers, whatever, people you know. About 50% of your triangle has you matched with other people. So 50% of your relationships are, we prioritize each other on this level the same. And 50% of your other relationships don't. So that does mean that there are probably people that you are prioritizing that do not prioritize you. And before you get worked up about it, it goes the other way. People are prioritizing you and you are not them. All right? This is nothing about worth or who we are as people, part of the reason why this happens and we prioritize each other differently is not because we're incompatible. It's not because we're mean. It's not because we're better than some people, but it's because we are all walking through these lives and have different tapestries of lives and then therefore different tapestries of relationships. I'm really close to a bunch of people that I grew up with, and a lot of us are in a friend group. So we see we see each other collectively in this friend group. And I have other friends that do not have that and maybe have like one friend from their childhood. So if I were to enter their lives and we were to become close, right, I might have more people I'm prioritizing because of this friend group than somebody else who has like one friend from childhood, right? It's not because we're mean. It doesn't mean anything else, but it's because we are in different situations. It's because, oh, someone's over here is going through a friendship breakup and another person over here moved across the country. Or this person just made a bunch of new friends at work. Or this person is really good about, my nose really itches. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna itch it like a child. Don't judge me. Aaron, my partner, always says I break my nose. Oh, I needed to do it so bad. Okay. But it doesn't mean anything else. It could be just as well. I'm really good at keeping up with my close friends. I have a friend of mine that is so good at this. She has like 5 priority people, and they have been the same, basically 5 priority people since I've known this friend. Right? And so everybody's working with different situations. So before you go and you make it mean something about you, just know that it does not. It absolutely does not. That is the most painful part about this experience. Now, I know I just said that we often describe our self-worth in relation to others. That it's really hard to think about our self-worth outside of our relationships. However, there are tons of different ways that you are connected and have relationships in your lives. You don't need to worry about, oh, if my friends are exactly prioritizing me or not. And it doesn't mean you're doomed that if you do feel quote unquote low priority, that you're doomed to have a low self-worth. I just want you to be compassionate with that and know, of course, you have a craving to feel valued by others. It doesn't mean you have a low self-worth all of the time. It doesn't mean that you aren't confident in yourself. It doesn't mean any of that. So just to make this super simple and to really run this home, if you are not feeling like a priority to people, you want to not feel like a quote unquote medium friend, and you are upset about that, that's okay. Treat yourself with kindness, be nurturing to yourself, and know that it doesn't mean anything about you for who you are. It doesn't mean anything about you. And of course, that hurts. And that might have you feeling a little low. That's okay. It doesn't mean something's gone wrong. It just means that you are thirsty for more connection. And you don't judge yourself when you're thirsty for water. Don't judge yourself for being thirsty for connection. Okay? We also take our power back by recognizing, oh, I just want more connection. I'm hungry. I'm thirsty for more connection. I want to have more confidence. I want to feel more prioritized. That is so different rather than, oh, this means something's off about me. I'm not fun enough. I'm not cool enough. I'm not interesting enough. I'm not worthy enough to be a top tier, quote unquote, friend, because it is kind of natural. It's a natural instinct to look at how we relate to others and be like, oh, this is how I also relate to myself. But when we are aware of this, we take our power back and we don't have to make it personally. We don't have to make it a hit on our self-worth. All right, so let's keep going through these dynamics to help give you some more understanding and awareness and empowerment around this. Now, medium friends, because they are like that vague, unclear middle tier, a lot of times people will tend to underestimate them. And we are finding that this is happening more and more frequently, but they are important. Now, remember when we talked about the quality and quantity of friendships? That episode is also going to be really helpful. But we talked about there being the friendship gap that happens around the age of 25. And it's when people start getting married, start getting really involved in their careers, start locating, start having kids. And they go from spending a lot of time with their peers in college, right? Like literally walking around on campus together, to, oh, I'm moving across the state, having children, buying a house. And so we have what's commonly known as the friendship gap. More information on this is that young adults tend to turn over 30 to 40% of their medium friends, their medium tier friends, annually. So we turn over 30 to 40% of their medium friends annually. Now, this is what happens a lot with other people, is if we are just focusing on our top tier friends, our best friends, our confidants, and when those friendships alter, when those friendships shift and change, whether somebody is moving across the country or we have a friendship breakup with a close friend, if we're just turning away medium friends, if we're just like, oh, they're not as delightful, not as meaningful as my confidant friends, then we're going to have nobody to pull up and invest in and be closer with, right? We also have nobody else to connect with, and then we're going to feel really lonely. We're going to feel really thirsty for connection if we don't have someone to have a casual dinner with or something like that, right? So this is what tends to happen. I know I work with a lot of new moms. I'm constantly getting mom, what, I don't know how to say this, like mom empowerment or mom coaches like reaching out to me to have me on their podcast, because like the thing that their people are talking about the most are, I feel lonely. And this makes a lot of sense. 83% of new moms, this is a study I just sent to one of these coaches recently, that 83% of new moms report feeling really lonely after they have kids. So this is something that happens, is we don't prioritize our friends in general, or if we are not even having a casual dinner with a medium friend, it can really impact our ability to have confidence in the future, and can make us have a lot of connection gaps and feel really thirsty for connection. But also, we really underestimate the value of these friendships. Lisa Miller mentions in her article that medium friends can be seen as inferior and not as delightful, but the pressure to not be a good friend, the pressure for it to be a little bit more low maintenance, can really help the friendship flourish and can really serve each person. At its best, a medium friendship can be almost freeing without a big sense of obligation. And she's quoting Dr. Freer, F-E-H-R, from the University of Winnipeg when she mentions this. And it kind of goes to what we talked about in the quality and quantity friendship episode. Go check that out if you haven't yet. It'll also give you some information on how to prioritize friends. But we talked about in that episode that it's really helpful for our sense of belonging to have what are called like passive friendships or weak ties, right? Having a diverse tapestry, painting art of different kinds of relationships is really healthy and optimal for our social health. And it is estimated that there are emotional and psychological benefits to medium friendship that just haven't been studied yet. So don't underestimate the value of medium friendships. I know that my medium friendships, the people that I catch up with every so often, whether they are an entrepreneur or a friend I get dinner with every so often, those connections are really fulfilling to me. They really do help with my sense of belonging. And again, this is where a lot of conflict in friendships arise, is around this medium friend dynamic and the lack of clarity around it all. And part of the reason why, and there's a great quote that demonstrates this, the quote is that most conflicts are just people trying to figure out, oh, do you care about me? Am I important to you? Most conflicts center around that need to feel cared for and loved and accepted. And so this is why it makes a lot of sense that a lot of our drama are around medium friendships, because we don't fully understand where we stand. And to be honest, there is no right or wrong way to communicate about this to alleviate the lack of clarity. There's no right or wrong way to handle this situation, and every situation is a case-by-case basis. Now, if someone does confront you, normally it will be around things like, hey, I thought it would be you that would be planning my baby shower, or I expected more of enthusiasm about my birthday from you, or it hurt my feelings that you didn't congratulate me on this thing. Most of the time, these issues will show up, again, around bridesmaids and things like that, but it will show up around celebrations and crises, like mentioned earlier. And if somebody comes up to you and they say, hey, this celebration or this crisis, I had the expectation that you would be there for me in more of that kind of way. I think one thing that you can do is you can say, hey, thank you for bringing this to me. I have different expectations of our friendships, but I do have so much love for you and I want you to feel cared for in this. I think it can be helpful to just talk in a way that is, I care about you and I see you, and in like a loving way, just kind of saying, that is not how I view the friendship. That is not how I prioritize it right now. And I do think because mutual prioritization is such a trigger point for a lot of people, and I'm assuming your friends don't listen to this podcast, that I don't think you should be like, well, you're just not a top tier friend to me. They might be like, what the hell? What? Excuse me. So I don't necessarily think that's the way to go, but I do think to offer a little bit of clarity around, I don't hold those expectations for you in my friendship. I do want you to feel loved and cared for. I'm really glad that you brought this up. You could say, I'm really busy focusing on this. This is my focus right now. And I implore you to include, like, I'm really focused on work, especially if you and your top tier friends are really about work, right? If y'all met at work, hang out at work, or are both very career driven, that's helpful, because then that can help give that person a little bit of context for, oh, they prioritize this other friend more because that's their focus in life. Now, obviously, again, that doesn't work for every situation, but I do think it's helpful to say, oh, I'm really prioritizing being active, and that's why I'm vacationing with, you don't have to say this part, but that's why I'm vacationing with Suzanne and going on these trips, because then we do climbing stuff together. We do really long bike rides together, things like that. So I do think it's helpful to say, this is what I'm really focused on, to help give that person context. If there isn't that context there, you could literally just be like, I am trying our best with our friendship and trying to uphold what I expect from it as well. Now, if you want to confront someone about their prioritization of you, if you want them to prioritize you more, I think it's helpful to ask them, how do you feel about our friendship? To really get an understanding of where they are at. And sometimes they might say like, oh, like on some level, like, I feel really good. I love that we catch up once in a while. It's so chill with you. They might say things like that where you recognize, oh, I am a medium friend. The point is not to take this personally, right? But you can start to describe as well, okay, I see how you feel about that. I would love for us to spend more time together. I would love to confide in each other more. You can say things like that that can really advocate for the friendship without saying, I want you to prioritize me more. I want to feel more like a priority. Honestly, I think too, it's also helpful to just confront yourself and say, okay, am I a medium friend to this person? And how is that okay? And if you're struggling with this, and I know there is somebody out there listening to this that is, I encourage you to pause this episode and even think about it. How is it okay that you are this person's medium friend? Why does it make sense that you are this person's medium friend? Is it because they already had a ton of friends? Is it because they have a lot going on? Is it because they're shy even? Whatever it may be. Now, some of you listening to this episode might think, oh, well, I don't want to dance around. I just want to be like, hey, am I your friend or not? Am I your confidant or not? And that is one way you can go about it, but I think that it's helpful to have these conversations of, oh, those are not expectations that I have, or I would love to hang out with you more, be closer to you, because a lot of people aren't aware of this information, y'all. They are not aware of friends prioritizing each other. They're not aware of mutual prioritization and reciprocation. They're not listening to this podcast. And I know that your goal in listening to this is to feel more connected. And I think there's ways we can do that without saying to somebody, this is where I rank you. Because that for a lot of people can mean, oh, so you think I'm better than this person? And that is not what we're saying at all. Now, like I said earlier, the most draining part about being a medium friend to somebody is what we make it mean about ourselves. And I want to encourage you not to go down that path of, oh, I would be ranked higher if I was cooler, if I was more confident, if I was more interesting. Because that's not the case, and that's just going to drain you and have you feel less confident to go create the deeper bonds that you want. It's also easier to have medium friends and to be a medium friend when you have this tapestry of social connections, when you have other confidants to go and invest in, when you have communities that you are a part of. And I know this might seem really complicated, but here's what I want to offer. This tapestry, this is all about connecting with people in a bunch of different and beautiful ways that matter, that help us have enriching lives. And although this might seem really complicated, it's really simple. At the end of the day, we are just all looking for the quote unquote sweet spot about two friends being on the same page of what they want to offer to each other and how they want to prioritize each other. And you're not going to be able to find that sweet spot unless you go invest in other people, unless you go connect. And once you hit the sweet spot, it feels so good. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't also feel good just to have a meaningful conversation with somebody. It doesn't mean that it also doesn't feel good to laugh and to have somebody to go hiking with instead of going alone. Right? These shared experiences, this laughter, these conversations are still fulfilling and worth doing, even if they don't become a friend that you mutually prioritize each other. And truthfully, that is what I did with JP and Nikki. They were my sweet spot where we, all three of us, if you will, mutually prioritized each other and reciprocated with each other. We hit this sweet spot. But how I got there was by investing in a bunch of people intentionally. And one of the people, so I picked actually 4 at the time, 4 women, people that I was investing in to create deeper bonds with. One of them rejected me. That's actually a really cool story. I should tell it one day. One of them rejected me. One of them ended up becoming a medium friend. And the other 2 were Nikki and JP. And then it worked out because they also became friends. And it was so fun. So before you listen to this episode and you're like, oh my gosh, this is complicated and messy, it's fun. It's still fun to meet with that medium friend for me. It's fun to have created these relationships with JP and Nikki. It was a fun process. And if you listen to that episode, you know that it was surprisingly easeful for me. I thought it was going to be way harder. What makes all of this harder is our self-image, our lack of self-acceptance, us not knowing how to be compassionate and nurturing to ourselves and to have a good self-esteem. What makes it hard is not valuing ourselves, is who we are. What makes it hard is social perfectionism and thinking that, oh, if I was socially perfect, then I would be prioritized, then I would be valued. What makes it hard is our lack of ability to feel connected to others, of distrusting others. That's what makes creating this beautiful tapestry where you have these sweet spots, where you have medium friends, where you have communities. That's what makes this whole social tapestry hard. Not medium friends. Not the dynamic of medium friends. Does medium friends add a little bit of confusion? Yeah. But what makes it hard and painful and an arduous process is not that confusion. It's everything else around it. It's taking it personally. It's low self-esteem. It's everything else, okay? All right. Now, I want to read a story I found from the subreddit r/social anxiety. And I'm going to read this to you. I'm going to read what some people said in response to it. And then I'm going to give my response to this. And I'm going to really give some feedback and some frameworks to help you if you're like, oh my gosh, but I am a medium friend. Because I know from the stats that so many people want to have more confidence. They want to have more meaningful friendships. And actually, there was a TikTok, I believe from Lisa Miller, talking about this medium friend situation. And there were so many comments like, oh, born to be a best friend, but always a medium friend. There were a ton of comments like that. And I just want to empower you, besides saying value yourself, to help you get out of that medium friend situation if you are in it. So I'm going to be getting to that in a second. So this is what this person wrote in on r/social anxiety. I finally realized I'm the low priority friend. What should I do? I'm in my 2nd year of university and I have been struggling to make genuine connections with people. I find myself jealous of friend groups I see, and I think I'm realizing it's because I don't actually have a strong group of close friends myself. I have friends individually who are in a group, but it's clear that while a couple of them have stronger friendships than others, I'm almost a filler friend of the gang. Only group I'm a part of was created from convenience and continues to exist because of that. Everyone in the group has another group, a different and stronger group of friends that they prefer, except me. No one ever asks me where I'd like us to hang or what I'm doing or even if I've been all right. But that's the only way I can start conversations with any of them or be included. I miss the pre-college days of having my best friends, but I can't even talk to my best friends about this because they actually succeeded in making close friends at a university. And the last thing I want is for them to realize that their best friend is a loser who anyone else but them could care less about. I really wish I could just ask how to make best friends at college, but I know there's no set answer. Okay, so hopefully, as I was reading this story, you have some context around everything else that we talked about today, and you're like, oh, I wish they just understood this. Because that's how I feel. If those of you didn't know this, if I don't know if I've ever said this before, but I was actually in this situation. I had a really close friend group in high school that blew up, obliterated, and I went into college like really wanting to make friends. And honestly, I could have written this post. Now, here's some things that people said in response to this. Someone said, here's my unhinged advice. Dress well, smell nice, and seem busy. Busy going on dates, busy running or doing impressive feats, busy overall. People like to hang out with people that make them look better and who will rub off on them to be better people. So be a better person yourself. Also pretend to be confident. People don't know the difference. Just say fuck it and pretend you are the best, and other people will believe it. Now, I will say that is a fast track train to go down social perfectionism. I think it's wonderful to chase things that you are interested in. It is wonderful to expand and look at, oh, how can I grow in this area? But if you don't have self-acceptance, it's going to feel really empty. There's not going to be a soft place for you to land on. So, yes, like do things that make you feel good. Wear clothes that make you feel good. Take care of your body, go on running and whatever it is. But the most important foundation for this is knowing the skill of self-acceptance and having a good sense of self-esteem. Truly. But I do think this person is right in the sense that you do want to enjoy yourself. You do want to value yourself, right? And showing up, valuing yourself, enjoying yourself is attractive. It's part of what makes people charismatic is here I am. I enjoy myself. I'm here to just enjoy you as well. One of my clients, she said, my friends have been reaching out to me more because I show up to them ready to be a friend rather than to try to get validation from them. Right? Obviously, I'm paraphrasing, but that is what that means is she started valuing herself, enjoying herself. She wasn't constantly seeking reassurance from her relational anxiety and trying to make sure her friends weren't mad at her or loved her or weren't judging her. And her friends started reaching out to her more. So I do think valuing yourself is really helpful. I do think doing things you enjoy and taking care of your body and things like that is really helpful. However, this is a fast track train to empty self-confidence that has no foundation to stand on. It's a fast way to develop social perfectionism and perfectionism in all these other areas of life. Because truly what perfectionism is I need to be perfect, do all the right things to be accepted and loved, and so I don't fail. Another person said, I was recently in a very similar situation, and here are some things that helped. I would talk to the gang about your feelings. You can even use language used in this post that you feel like priority. Number 2, realize individual connections and friendships and friend group dynamics are two distinct things. Instead of focusing on finding a good group, prioritize individual connections and try to make friends that way. It can be really helpful to get to know people one-on-one. You could do things like, hey, do you want to get lunch sometime? People really like being reached out to and feeling like they're special. This helps you build your authenticity and magnetic presence so others will want to include you. Number 3, plan activities and events yourself. Ask everyone if they want to get dinner or go bowling or something and then propose a spot and a date or time. Instead of relying on others to include you, position yourself as the one including others. This empowers you to make decisions, and everyone will want to be a part of your circle. I think this is an easier way, especially if you're socially awkward. And then number 4, you could work on building individual connections and befriending everyone in one of the stronger groups and make your way into one of those. Now, I do think this is actually pretty sound advice. I love that this person described that there's a difference between groups and one-on-one dynamics as well. Being prioritized really mostly means, oh, I'm prioritized by this friend. It's mostly dyadic with like between people one-on-one rather than being in a group. So I love that they made this distinction. I love that they talked about, hey, mention it to these people, to this group that you feel this way. And I love the encouragement of start to have connections one-on-one and build those. The planning events in yourself are really great. Honestly, this is pretty sound advice for the group. I do think it's interesting that they mention you could work on building individual connections and befriending everyone in one of the stronger groups and then make your way into one of those. I don't necessarily know what they meant by stronger group, if they meant like go for a different friend group. So that was interesting. Now, another person said, invest in your group, be proactive and organize things, demonstrate ways in which they will be attracted to your energy, ways that you will provide value to the group, speak up, offer opinions, say it with confidence. People love confidence. Highlight people's strengths and compliment them. Like, Harry, always the sharp dresser. How are things with the girlfriend? I'm sure she loves your style. Or sometimes in conversations, if someone makes a good point, pop up and say things like, that's a really good point. It shows that you're both an active listener and someone who will support them. If they're keen, they'll remember and support you at a later time. Now, I do think a lot of this is good advice. I love their examples. Now, part of the reason why their examples work are like, one, investing in the group, being proactive. That is showing that you are prioritizing, and truthfully, we like people that like us. If someone's prioritizing us, that feels good. And so that is helpful and can really strengthen the meaningfulness of a friendship. Same thing goes for complimenting people. We like people that like us. We all want spaces where we feel worthy, accepted, encouraged. And so I think that's great advice. I think think of ways to add value to the group. I would offer, again, that's where we're going down the social perfectionism train. That's where we're going down the let me try to be this thing that other people will like. And that is a very fake and shady foundation to create. It's very unstable. It'll break down really easily. So I would not suggest that. Now, this person does go on to say, in my opinion, filler friends are people who retire to that role. They're not assigned that role. They make that role for themselves. What I mean by that is maybe you have some confidence issues to work through. What helps me is I like to talk things out loud to myself. And they're talking about for confidence stuff. And they said, you have the opportunity to turn things around. It's up to you to decide where you want to be. Do you want to actively participate in a friend group? Or do you want to slink into the shadows? Because if you don't interact and invest in people, they won't invest in you and you'll get left behind. And then they quote them, but why don't they invest in me? Sorry, but life doesn't work that way. It's a million times easier to make adjustments to your life than to expect the world to change for you. Now, I will say, there's a lot of this that I do agree with. I do. I think they said it in a very shame-based way, like, be better, chump. That's not helpful. Again, it goes back to what's truly motivating, self-acceptance, understanding. That's what's truly motivating for us to be better in any areas of our lives is, oh, here's the enoughness that I have, and that makes me feel capable to expand on it and to try new things, or that makes me feel empowered to reach for this goal that I have because I have enoughness here. That's what's actually motivating for us. So I do think this is a little bit like shame based, but I do think they have a point of you want to be active in your friendships and again create this beautiful tapestry of social connection in your lives. And friendship doesn't just happen to us, it is something that takes people investing in, it takes people, I don't want to say just making time for, but it takes people investing in and opening themselves up, no matter what kind of friendship that you were in. Even if you had a wonderful friend who kind of took you under their wing, you still invested back into that friendship. So, friendship doesn't just happen to us, it's something we need to be an active participant of. But again, I want to remind you that creating this tapestry can be so fun, beautiful, and easeful if we can increase our capacity to feel connected and if we can enjoy ourselves, right? If we can be the socially delighted humans that we know we are, that I know you are. So there's that as well. And then lastly, a bunch of people said, find a new friend group. I really wanted to touch on this because obviously this is a case by case basis, but I want to share a little bit about my story to give some context on this. So part of the reason why I went through this journey to create more meaningful friendships and ended up creating the friendships that I used to daydream about having is because I was feeling a little bit dissatisfied in my current friend group. They didn't want to talk about some of the things I wanted to talk about. They didn't care about the experiences I wanted to have. What I mean that they didn't care. They just weren't passionate about it. They weren't interested. I wanted to share more with other people. Like specifically, I wanted people that were really into relationship dynamics between humans, psychology, and of impacting the world. And so I wanted that out of my friendships. And my friendships were spread out. They were all doing different things in their lives. And by me going and creating these other friendships, like specifically with Nikki and JP, it enhanced my connection to my friend group. It didn't take away from it because I wasn't relying on them to spend time with me all the time, to invest back into me all the time. I was able to appreciate them more and connect to them more meaningfully when I wasn't focusing on how they weren't reciprocating as much with me or how they didn't want to have these experiences or these conversations I wanted to have. So I do think sometimes it is helpful to go and find new friend groups, but I also think that it's so helpful to talk to people about the friendships itself, and that's going to help give you clarity. So I love that the person earlier when describing this, they were like, hey, tell your friends that you feel like a low priority friend, right? People want to feel connected, they want to be included, and they want to include others. It also feels valuable for other people to include others. People feel valuable and important when they are useful in somebody else's lives, when they can be a comfort, when they can include somebody, when they can help brighten somebody's day or experience, right? So I do think having conversations with people about the friendship itself is helpful. And there's times where it's like, okay, I'm really not feeling prioritized here, and I've talked to this person about it. So instead of trying to force somebody to prioritize you, I do think it's helpful to talk about it, talk about the relationship itself, and that way you guys can have more clarity and understanding, and that can help you feel content in the relationship and to prioritize other people. I do think, though, that if you are in this situation where you are craving more confidence, I do think as you are building those, it is very helpful to take some refuge in your current top tier relationships, in your current confidants. And that was also something that I did while I was building these new friendships with people and moving people up my triangle, creating these new confidants. I really talked to my childhood friend a lot more. I did lean on them a little bit more for support during that time. I leaned on my partner at the time as well and took refuge in that because we all want to really feel valued. And so as you are building these relationships, you can also just tap into your current reservoirs of, oh, here's where I feel really valued too, and soak that in and appreciate that. Now, just like anything else, I know I talk about it all the time, but it's really helpful to put on your connection glasses and to look for how people are investing in you, to look for how people are connecting to you, affirming you. It's so easy for our brains to look at how we are the medium friend, to look at how we are disconnected from others, not being prioritized. And it is just so hurtful to us in the long run. It can really zap our self confidence. It can really have us suffer with relational anxiety. It's just not fun, not a fun experience. So I wanted to recap this and give y'all a really clear framework for if you are struggling with being a middle tier friend. First and foremost, think of it as an art, as a flow, and you are making effort and focusing on things and not taking things personally. And you're also doing things where you feel self-value and taking refuge in your relationships where you feel really valued by those people. So think of it as an ever-flowing, ever-changing masterpiece, art tapestry. That's really helpful to start with. In a group dynamic, I think it's really helpful to have more one-on-one time to increase the meaningfulness of those relationships. In a one-on-one or dyadic dynamic, I do think it's really helpful to set your intentions about the relationship, to be like, hey, I want to connect more. I want us to be even closer. I really enjoy you. I had somebody that I interviewed, or that they had me on their podcast. They interviewed me on their podcast, and they emailed me after, and they were like, I really want to be your friend. And I was like, awesome. We started setting up a time to chat more. And and they also emailed me when my podcast came out, just cheering me on. It was so nice and lovely. That is such a gift to offer someone. Like, to be on the receiving end of such a gift. Also, if I didn't have my connection glasses on, I could easily have missed that and dismissed it and been like, oh my gosh, I'm not being prioritized by these people. I'm not important to these people. But because I know how to put on my connection glasses, I can feel and soak in that connection and just enjoy it in my body and appreciate that this person took the time to send me an email congratulating me on my podcast launch, right? All right, just to wrap up, so think of it as an art, as an ever-flowing thing. Don't take this personally. That's what makes it really draining. And do things where you feel self-value, where you enjoy yourself. Treat yourself with acceptance, right? So think of it as an art. Treat yourself kindly. Don't take it personally. Put on your connection glasses. Have conversations. State your intentions, your desire to make the friendship more meaningful. And if you're in a group dynamic, have more one-on-one connections and relationships. That is what I have for y'all today. Thank you so much for coming to hang out with me. Again, if you want the Make Your Friendships More Meaningful Without Adding to Your Plate workshop to come to you, send me a DM, slide in my DMs, boo. Or you can also go to my website, www.connectionwithjewel.com/speaking, and fill out that form there. We have more speaking events coming up this year, which I'm really, really excited about. And I really want to bring this workshop to as many people as I can. So if you ask me, I will probably do it. So go find that. And as always, I hope you have a delightful rest of your day. You enjoy yourself, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining me on the Socially Delightful podcast. I'm Jewel, and I'm truly so grateful that you came and hung out with me today. If this podcast meant something to you, it would mean so much to me if you left me reviews. That way I could keep making content that you love. And if you really want to make my whole day, share this podcast to your Instagram story and tag me at Connection with Jewel so I can shout you out. Or send me a message and let me know what resonated with you or what you want to hear next. And I'll see you at the next episode.